Welcome to the P.R.A.Y webinar presentation on teaching the God and Family program. This will be a lesson-by-lesson look at the God and Family curriculum. My name is Deb Hazelwood. I'm part of the P.R.A.Y staff here in St. Louis. My main responsibility has been to develop the P.R.A.Y curriculum, so I'm excited to be here. God and Family was one of the first ones we revised, so it's a favorite. Here we go. As we begin, a word of caution. There is no one definitive way to teach the God and Family program. I myself taught it like a 8-week course. I've done it as a retreat at a camp setting. We've done, I've worked on an independent basis with a student preparing for baptism. The structure of the class will be different, and the lesson plans will be different depending on your strengths and your needs. So this webinar will provide an overview. We're going to show sample props and projects, and our goal is to increase your comfort level and encourage you to facilitate a God and Family class. So as you listen to all the different ideas and see different things, be looking at them with a critical eye. What resonates with you? Pick and choose what it will go with your strengths and your particular interests. There are a lot of different people signed up for this webinar, some who have been teaching, in fact, some who have trained others to teach the class, and yet my comments are going to be directed at the person just starting out with little or zero experience with the program. Our goal is to get you comfortable with it and also for you to see how it's not just helping kids earn an award, but it's coming alongside children and families and walking alongside them on their faith journeys as they learn and grow together. If I'm teaching a class, here are my assumptions today: that the pastor has appointed or approved me to facilitate the class. So I can't just go out on my own and teach a class. If the pastor's not teaching it, the pastor is going to approve me. And then we're going to, of course, abide by all safety standards for the church, for scouting, 2 deep leadership, things like that. I'm going to encourage parents to attend. And I'm going to also ask them to complete the Adult Mentor Program. When I do God and Me, it's a requirement that a parent is there. The older kids, I encourage them. I want them there. I will open up the class to, so I'm going to have a mixture of denominations and scouting groups. You can have a Girl Scout alongside a member of the Boy Scouts or Heritage Girls. And I'm going to open it up to members of Protestant independent Christian churches. I will not sign anything off. The students will be taking their work to their own pastors for the final review. The pastor is going to be the one who does the interview and signs it off. But all students are going to be invited to the awards ceremony hosted by my church, and my pastor is behind the program. My pastor will be there for those who do not have a church home. My pastor is willing to step in, talk with the kids and parents. Now on page 2, when it said this is going to be a lesson-by-lesson look at the God and Family curriculum, we're just going to go page by page. On page 2, in a box there they have the eligibility requirements. I do want to comment on them. These are for boys and girls who are in grades 4 and 5. You know what? You don't go backwards in earn younger awards. You jump right in. So these are for 4th and 5th graders. They need to have their own workbook. They're going to be writing their answers in there, drawing in there. They need to have a copy. They need to present the work to the pastor for final approval. Talked about that. I can't sign it off. It's not a parent signing it off. It's not a scout leader signing it off. It's the pastor. And when it says it's for Protestant and independent Christian churches, just because I am Lutheran or Baptist and I would be teaching God and Family, I cannot assume that all the kids in my scouting group, for example, will be doing this program. Each religion creates its own. Make sure you get the Catholic books to the Catholic kids. There's the Jewish program, Buddhist program. Make sure that you are encouraging the youth to earn the emblem of their own faith. And God and Family is specifically Protestant and independent Christian churches. But there's a note. This program does not require that young people have official membership in a congregation, so that if a family has moved into the neighborhood, if the family does not have a church home, maybe is unchurched, they can do the program. They don't have to have membership in a congregation, but it still requires that they present their work to a pastor. That's why if the pastor has approved me to teach this, to facilitate this, my pastor is also willing then to be the pastor to talk to those who are unchurched or not active in a congregation. So I think it's important for you to realize that as you do God and family, and you'll see it's like a Christian education resource where we do Bible lessons, etc. It's also that element of evangelism that you're reaching out. It enables the pastor in a congregation to reach out to families without church homes, and they can feel comfortable in that congregation and connect with the pastor, other members of the church, and in that way we're bringing families into the life of the church. All right, if we look at a program summary, first of all, there are 3 books at this level. The student workbook, that's where we're going to be flipping page by page through. The student workbook is required for each child. It's the Bible lessons. Everything is in there. The counselor's manual that we highly recommend, it has answers, but it also has the handouts for making the pizza. It has the answers, it has handouts, it has discussion helps. It walks you through a lesson plan for each of the sessions. And then the adult mentor workbook, if you go to our website, it will say that is a workbook for the parent. And it's an optional program for the parent for them to be able to work side by side with their child. And if you talk to people who have very successful programs, they will say that one of the reasons their program is successful is that they utilize that adult mentor workbook. They are asking parents to be mentors, and basically the God and Family program is coming alongside them. We recognize that they are the people in charge of the faith formation of their children, and this is an intentional way that they can grow in faith together and share their faith with their child, because the mentor workbook will ask them to read the Bible passages and answer questions as a parent, reflecting on how they want their child to grow, reflecting on how they can impact the life of their child. So 3 books. The student workbook is required. But you know what, if I'm doing the program, I'm using the counselor's manual, and my parents have mentor workbooks. The goals for God and Family provide an opportunity for children and families to explore their faith together and to learn 6 ways of strengthening families through faith. There's a memorization requirement. It's going to be the 10 Commandments. The theme for God and Family is growing in God's love, and the hands-on component is pizza. All about pizza. We're going to compare the layers of a pizza to the layers of a family. And, just to give you some background, when we were first revising the program, and we're thinking, how do you have a program for families when families come in all different sizes and shapes, and how do you do that? And we thought back to, back in the day when you were studying how people came to America, you were taught that it was like a melting pot. And they would come and melt together and have this new American culture. And then we learned that that wasn't such an accurate analogy. A better motif would be a salad. That, you can add tomatoes and carrots and mushrooms, and cheese and green pepper to your salad. They retain their unique flavor. They still celebrate their own culture. But then when you add a salad dressing and you splash that dressing over everything, that's what brings it all together in this new American culture. And we're thinking, that's it. That's what we needed for a God and Family program. Look at the individual family, but we all have this God flavor. We have God's love connecting us. So we wrote this all up, showed it to Mark. He took one look at it, and he said, salad? How boring. Who wants to study salad? Oh, it just killed me. So after I finished pouting, got back, and that's how we came up with pizza. And what I really like about pizza, well, it's not boring. If you've ever done a God and Family class, they really look forward to that pizza party. But what I really like is we're building a pizza layer by layer, and I love where you can look back and review, what have we built, what are we building now, what's to come, and it's an easy concept and a visual. It's easy visuals, and we're teaching key truths. So I really love that pizza concept. Well, let's just get started. Table of contents has 6 lessons. A typical schedule has 6 to 8 sessions, because if you want to have a separate introductory session and then a pizza party at the end, you know what? You can pick the number of sessions you want. You can combine the intro. You can have a longer final lesson for a party. Make it fit your needs. All right, on the introduction on page 3, we are comparing families and pizzas, and we want to talk about how are they alike. And the thing that we want to stress is that each family is unique. No other family in the world is identical to yours. And so you know what? Pizzas are unique too. Okay, I grew up in Japan. Here's some pizza from Japan. Scrambled egg and mayonnaise pizza, squid and octopus, seaweed and eggplant. Pizza is unique. You know, there's no wrong way of making a pizza. Families, you know what? They are unique. We want to stress that. And I think that's why one of the, we've heard from families with adopted kids, you know what? They can do this program and they can see how unique they are. In the program, the layers of the pizza will be compared to the layers of the family. When I get to this part where we have the different pictures of the different layers, and I think this is posted on our website, but I actually print out, you know, the crust on a 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper and the oven mitts and the cheese, and I actually have like these little posters, these little display pictures. We pass them out, try to get them in order, try to identify them. There's some you know, the sauce is a little bit different there, the cheese. And so, you know, we'll pass out the pictures, we'll put them in order, then we'll sit down and label them in the books, and we'll talk about the pizza layers that way. But the main thing on page 3 is going to be the story of Joshua getting to enter into the new land. And so we're going to learn about God's plan to build strong families, and we're going to hear about Joshua and his decision that as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. And I actually make labels. These are just regular address labels. And I have choose this day whom you will serve, but as for me and my house, and then I want the kids to, in their own handwriting, you know, we will serve the Lord. And they put that in the cover of their workbooks. It's also a name tag. They put their name on there. But at any point in the program, that day, any other week, if I say, as for me and my house, they better respond, we will serve the Lord. And I think parents have made that choice, but I think kids need to see that, oh, how do I fit into this? How am I choosing to live for the Lord? And they can see how their family then has this goal that they can share. There's a response at the bottom of page 3. They will also be asked to answer that question about giving ultimate priority to God. What does it mean? They'll be asked to answer that at the very end of the program, so you can compare responses from the beginning of the program to the end. So that's on the introduction on page 3. As we go into lesson 1, just very quickly, what are the components? Look back at, in the counselor's manual, the looking back section are some review questions that you can use to review the previous lessons. And they also have an opening activity. I'm big on opening activities. You're not going to see them in the student workbook. They're in the counselor manual. Now, this is from here on, explore the theme. This is what the student will actually be reading. Explore the theme is the discussion of what the comparison of the pizza to the Bible concept. The Meet the Bible families, most important part of the lesson, and there's always going to be at least 2 families you meet, and we try to also have a good balance of Old Testament and New. The Bible story, your story, very simple, personal application, a little summary. It's basically you're writing a recipe card. Build a pizza. This is where you're actually making the cardboard paper pizza. This is, if I run out of time, they're finishing that up at home, in addition to at home this week, which is the family project. All right, those are the parts. Lesson 1 is the crust, which is the foundation. So we're on page 4. Explore the theme. We all know what a crust does. It holds up the pizza. Whether you have a deep dish, a thin crust, whether you have a fruit pizza, a brownie pizza, one with a tortilla or flatbread, you need something to hold it up. And so families also need a crust, or they need a foundation. And we have a foundation built on God's love revealed in Jesus Christ. So this is the discussion. They're nice questions on what is a foundation. How can you tell the quality of a foundation? Families have foundations. How can you tell when a family has a good foundation? Nice questions to be asking children. The opening activity, though, going into this, in the counselor's manual, I think they suggest building a house out of dominoes and one out of Legos, and which is going to be stronger. If I throw a ball at it, which is going to be the stronger house. And so, you know what, a domino is probably stronger than a single Lego, but a Lego connects, and that's what we want our families to be connected. I like to do another opening activity that I like is building a tower of blocks. And you can build a tower of blocks on yourself. Try to put a tower on your forehead, which you know is going to come crashing down. Or see how big a tower you can build if you're building it on God's Word. And one thing I like about this opening activity is that you can, everybody can be doing this at the same time. I have them, you know, I don't like to have kids wait their turn. So if you have enough blocks, get them in partners. One can help, as one kid is building the tower on their forehead, the other is handing them blocks one at a time. So I like this. This was a suggestion, and I think I really enjoy this opening activity. The first family we meet is God's great big family, and we're reading the passage in Deuteronomy. And I have a poster, "Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one." And this is oftentimes said, that's the heart of the Old Testament. But we do talk about what are the action words in here, what are the verbs. That's what they're going to have to write in their book, but we'll be doing it on my poster first. You know, hear, love, impress. And you know, when we talk about action words, those are things that you should be able to act out, you know, run, jump, throw, hop. But how do you act out words like hear, love? And some of these words that aren't like these they're not as visible, but those strong words like forgive, understand. And so we talk about how some of those, you know, that you don't readily associate it, like, you know, with run, jump, throw, believe. You know, how do you act that out? Hate. Now that one's a little bit easier, but how do you act that out? And because the verse says, you know, love the Lord your God with all your heart and soul and strength, I like to do like a tug of war or an arm wrestle. Of course, it has to be a very controlled situation. But in the same way, if you are evenly matched in your arm wrestling or you're doing a tug of war, you can be huffing and puffing and grunting and groaning, and it doesn't look like you're going anywhere. It looks like if I were to walk by, if you were evenly matched in an arm wrestling, it looks like you're still. And yet you are exerting all your strength and you're putting everything into it. And that's when we're arm wrestling, we're evenly matched. I'll get a dad in there. Just, you know, that arm is not going to move. Those kids cannot move his arm no matter what. That's what we're trying here. That we've got to love God with that same amount of passion and strength and exert ourselves. And so we'll talk about that. How do we go for the gold? And you're going to talk about what a mezuzah is. And here's a mezuzah made out of a little film canister. I know you can also get like clean pill bottles, but you're going to put the Bible verse, put it in there. I usually hand them a label. They can mark it. But on page 5, the image there. I know people have made that exact same mezuzah that looks like that with just like fun foam, 2 different colors. They've actually just stapled it, and then they put the love God, love your neighbor. And here's a picture where they made a mezuzah with the cord, and the parchment says love God, love your neighbor, and he's illustrated that. Again, these are just ideas. The Deuteronomy passage is going to be paired with the story of in Matthew, the resurrection story. When I do this, you know what? I think you have to know Holy Week. You have to know Good Friday. You have to know the whole story before you just read the resurrection story. So I like to bring in resurrection eggs, or I like to bring in at least print out the symbols of the objects that would be in a resurrection egg. Do you know what I'm talking about? You can get those eggs, and inside would be like a silver coin, or a thorn for crown of thorns, or a little washcloth, you know, the washing of the feet. And because usually in a class you're going to have church kids, you're going to have these faithful Sunday school kids that will know the story, and some will not know it at all. So if I use symbols or resurrection eggs, that it's a way that we tell the story and we experience the death of Christ, and then we're going to go and we're going to read the resurrection story, Matthew 28. And that's one that I do like to act out. As we read it, we're going to act it out. You know, there's an earthquake in there. Who doesn't love to act out an earthquake? And then on page 6, we illustrate the drama by filling in facial expressions of despair to shock to joy. And the last verse we read is going to be John 3:16. And you know what? They better memorize that if they haven't already. 3 things, what does God does? He loves us. There's a heart. He gives his son. There's a gift. And everlasting life. He promises everlasting life. And what do we need to do? We need to believe in Jesus. And there's that word again, believe. How do you act that out? It's a very strong word. And so we'll talk about that. You know what? I always personalize John 3:16, but I have it in a scroll that they can then roll up and add to their mezuzah. So they got passage from Deuteronomy in there, and they also have John 3:16. All right, the summaries on page 7. This is the Bible Story, Your Story component, and you're going to see a recipe card. The recipe card always, don't make this more difficult than it is. It's a recipe card. There's ingredients, basically listing people, and the recipe will just be a sentence, a summary of what you want to remember. So in lesson 1, it was all about God, Jesus, your family. List the names of your family. Put it in there. All right, done with that. What is a summary? What do you want to remember? This kid wrote, it's important we have a firm foundation. We can weather the storms of life. 1 line. Write it in there. Also on page 7, we have build a pizza. They have to make the crust. The crust has to have a Bible verse around the rim, has to have a symbol of Jesus, and pictures of people. So you have a cross in the middle, you have pictures, and Angela had, but to all who received him, who believed in his name, he gave power to become children of God. You know what? I see a lot of John 3:16. I see a lot of, choose this day whom you will serve. And you'll see Deuteronomy. You know what? Pick a Bible verse that's meaningful for you. That'll show what your family is going to stand on. Here's another example of a crust. He cut the cross out of a picture of flowers. Your crust will also have family pictures. Okay, these are this boy. That's his family pictures on there. So that'll be one of the assignments. They need to bring a picture to include on their crust. A family picture. Now, just so you know, online we do offer some resources. The cross, the chalice, the lamb, the good shepherd, you can print out. I think we have like 2 sheets of the clip art, which then students can choose to put in the middle of their cardboard circle. And also, I think the book says, bring in old magazines, look through and cut up pictures. If you don't have time for that, if you don't have magazines, you can print out. We have some random clip art of people, so you can also provide that. That will be online. Hopefully we'll have time to bounce out and look at that. And there'll be an activity to be done at home. Start saying prayers together. Do a family night, family activity, or do a game night together. An option is also with your family, go to church and identify all the different crosses in a church. And this boy found a lot of different crosses and even took pictures of the people wearing a necklace with the cross. So he made a big poster. I thought that was cool. All right, that's the end of lesson 1. Lesson 2 is sauce, which is heritage. And for the Explore the Theme, which is going to be on page 9, the whole point of sauce is that it cooks slowly over time, and it's a special blend. It's going to be unique. It's hard to make the sauce the exact same way. And families are like that. They simmer over time. There's a special blend of people and experiences. An opening activity is human bingo, and there's a bingo board online. You know what? Try to find someone whose grandparents came from another country, someone who has a family member who's adopted, someone who was baptized, etc., etc. But I also like to do the other suggestion is to bring in all the different kinds of spices. So I tried to get, like, what, sugar and salt, they look the same. Peppercorn, oh my goodness, some people have no clue what that is. Garlic, a bay leaf, what? You would put a leaf in there? Things that look similar. Basil, oregano. And so we gather around and we look at all the different spices and marvel at how many different spices go in there, and how much we put in. And so we start thinking about all the different people that might be going into your heritage. The first family we meet, this is also on page 9, is Ruth. And we read Ruth because this is someone who is new to the faith. She marries into the family. And so it's an important story for children who are on church that you know what? We come to faith in different ways at different times. And we want to make that point with children. And we also, on page 10, we talk about, who is a part of me, and we color in that picture, make them look like you. We learn that heritage is not just the things we inherit, it's things that we learn, and we consider how families shape who we become. And what I like to do is, so you're going to have physical things, you know what, and I'm short, I got dark hair, but I also learn some things. I learn music. Compassion. And I like to pair them up, and they kind of interview each other and present something that they've learned about their partner. That story is going to be paired with Mary and Joseph bringing Jesus to the temple. And so it's a story of someone who's been brought up in the faith from day one. And as we read the passage, we discuss how Jesus grew. And we also talk about the rules or rituals that our faith community has to welcome children, and how we welcome children. How do we grow into that faith community? And so it's a nice balance of looking at someone new to the faith and someone being brought up in the faith. And the recipe card then is on page 11. You would be, we listed the people, Ruth, Naomi, Jesus, Mary, Joseph, and you're going to add the people you add to this recipe card as ingredients will be people who help you on your faith journey. What can you name your Sunday school teachers? Can you name your pastor? What friends have helped you? And so you name them, and then you write a quick sentence to summarize what you learned about heritage. To believe in God, obey the Bible. All right, when you're going to make the sauce, you're actually going to weave strips of paper. And each strip of paper should have a name of someone who helped them grow in faith. Someone from their family, it can be Bible characters. And on the back of the strip of paper will say why that person's important to them. So it is, you can see there's Shadrach, Meshach, Abednego, they're like Esther. There's a grandma and grandpa on there, and you weave it together. You can see the words. And you know what? We write Angela, 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 because you want to be able, part of your writing is going to be hidden. And so we write the name repeatedly, and when you're done with the sauce, you put it on your crust, and it hides the foundation, which is realistic. We talk about that. But when we are getting ready to weave, this is the way. You know what? I take 2 pieces of paper. I give them an orange and a red. Because always the circles that we have used, the cardboard crust, basically a sheet of paper will cover it. So I give them 2 sheets of paper. It looks like I cut it into 5 strips. And if you take 1 orange and you tape down the red, over, under. If you tape this down, now it's going to be real easy to weave. Now they can take the rest of the paper and weave it. Now, of course, they have to have written on it prior to weaving it. And so with the 2 sheets of paper, you're going to have to be able to name 10 people in your family heritage and your spiritual heritage, and you're going to weave it together. And then you're going to tape it down, and start, rounding it off. That's how I do it. I think if you kind of see the orange strip with the red tape there, it makes it much easier to accomplish that task. The family projects. Talking to a parent or grandparent about their experiences growing up. We hear a lot about that. That's just a wonderful experience. You can see some choices there, but the other thing I think in the counselor's manual is you make a family crest or make a family tree and bring those in. So I usually assign that and have them bring it in, and we do a show and tell on that. Okay, lesson 3, toppings. Lesson 3 is going to start on page 13. Exploring the theme. You know what, when I think it makes the point that if you make a cake and you add eggs and butter and flour, when you take the cake out of the oven, you don't see the eggs, you don't see the butter. But if you have a pizza and you add pepperoni, mushroom, green pepper, when you take it out of the oven, you still see that. And I think at this age, it's older elementary, at this age, I think you want to stress that, you know what, you are unique. You are not supposed to be like an older sibling, or you are not, your brother or sister. You're not supposed to be identical, and so that this is going to be a lesson where you identify your strengths and you celebrate that. The opening activity in the counselor's manual, they suggest having students write 2 facts about themselves. It doesn't have to be little known, but 2 facts that they're proud of. And you just play a guessing game. We read them off and we guess who was the on the champion lacrosse team, or who did compose a song and play it in a piano competition. What are those facts? And we're celebrating how unique we are. The Bible family, the first one is Moses and Aaron, and 2 brothers, and good discussion questions where we're talking about, what, and Moses was the younger one. What's with that? But when we read this, we always end up acting out the portion where it talks about the battle with the Amalekites. And you know what? So you need a Joshua, you need Moses and Aaron and Hur, but everybody else is the armies. And we do a slow motion. And whenever Moses gets tired and his arms start to droop, and then, the tide turns. And so this is always a fun thing we act out. But after you read the Bible accounts of Moses and Aaron, on page 14, you're filling in the blank with Moses and Aaron, and you're discussing questions. You know what? Do you think it was hard for Aaron to accept Moses as a leader? Do you think you have times when you think you don't have the skills to do a specific task? How is your family stronger if you work together? Some nice questions. There's a T-shirt on page 14 that you're going to write down your unique gifts. And you know what? There's also that the outline of the T-shirt online. You can print it out. And when we were at camp, we didn't let them put their name on it, but they got a decorated T-shirt, and they wrote out they described themselves. And that was a kind of an activity where we tried to guess who they were, and they were up on the walls, and it was a nice activity. But you know what? A lot of people make real T-shirts, and then this girl actually made an apron, which I think is really cool. Isn't that perfect? So again, when you wear a God and Family medallion, it means that you've completed this workbook, and you've done the lessons that are taught in here. But how cool is it when leaders bring all this extra stuff into it, and they're making aprons and T-shirts? They really make it very meaningful for children. The story of Moses and Aaron is going to be paired with Timothy. And that starts on page 14. And the purpose of this is to teach children, you got to know your gifts, but it's not enough to know your own unique gifts. You have to develop them, and you have to share them. And we're going to learn how Timothy had a gift of faith, and what does that mean, a gift of faith? And he was nurtured by others and then encouraged to share his gift, and that's what we wanted to hear. The passages you're reading here, meeting Timothy's family, they're not action-packed like a battle that we read with Moses earlier. But again, just stressing that know your gifts, develop them, share them. And, how is faith a gift? Name kids who seem to have this gift, how they use that. Paul prayed for Timothy. Who prays for you? And when you're speaking to the children, who can you pray for? And I think, and a good reminder that as someone facilitating a class, that we want to pray for these children, and we want to pray for their families. And so for us to remember to lift them up in prayer. When you come to the recipe card, they list, we studied Moses, Aaron, Timothy, etc., etc. Name people who encourage you. Put down their names. And then write a quick sentence. This boy wrote, as we combine our gifts to help each other, together we are all stronger. It's very well said. When you add the toppings on page 16, basically you say, okay, pepperoni is Dad or pepperoni is Angela. And I think you have to do 3 or 5. And for each time you add pepperoni and you put Dad on there, you have to put a positive thing about that person. And so Angela's a good friend. Angela loves dance. Angela's kind. You're naming good qualities in each member of the family. And we like to, I don't think it's in the counselor's manual, but I like to use overheads, the transparencies. Now there are some that are very expensive because they go through the, they're made to go through the heat of a copier, but if you just use the cheaper overhead, it makes it really nice that when you assemble your pizza, that you can lift up, you can see how the ingredients are resting in the sauce, being held up by the crust. If I go back to this one, here's an example of, these are some of the toppings that are found in the counselor's manual. You can see that you have them in the back. And if you go online, you can have like a whole page of just green pepper. If you have green paper and you want to print it out on there, you're ready to go. So you can do, homemade ingredients, or you can print them out, and you assemble your pizza. And you can see how, Angela, whatever she was, pepperoni, she's resting on us on the sauce. That, what, it might be Esther or Ruth or Grandma, and you can see how we're connected. So it's a nice visual building of your family pizza. Some of the family projects, the I Spy game, we hear kids love that. Do a prayer walk. Write a letter encouraging people in your life. All right, we come to cheese. Cheese starts on page 17. And, cheese is going to be a lesson on rules, but we're introducing rules within the context that because we're loved, we're going to follow rules. So we really want to talk about that. Rules that's not how we catch you doing wrong. And I remember Leo Simek was very good about explaining the 10 Commandments. It's just like if you have a car. When you buy a car, it comes with an owner's manual. And you'll drive that car just fine if you ignore the owner's manual about changing the oil and checking the air pressure in the tires. You can go a good long ways. Eventually, it will catch up to you if you do not do regular oil change or don't do regular maintenance. And that's the same thing for families. You know what? You'll be fine as a family. You can carry on a good long while. But if you are not telling the truth, if you are, your own life, if you're stealing or lying, you can get away with it for a long time. Eventually, it's going to catch up to you. And so that's the context that rules are there to protect us and not to catch us doing wrong, but to keep us in right relationship, to help us not break down. And it's going to be easy to visualize. Cheese melts over everything. It's going to hold it together. So families, you know what? We have rules that help us stick together. And an opening activity is Hucklebuckle Beanstalk. It's kind of a silly game. It's a hiding game. You choose an object, a coin, a rock. I don't know why, but I've always had a peanut in the show. And you hide this object, like in a different room, or they close their eyes. They close their eyes while you hide it. And then the way you play the game is you got to look for it. And when you find it, you don't grab it, you don't move it. You just quietly go back to your seat and say, Hucklebuckle Beanstalk. And you know what? Some people can never remember that. So even though they spot it, they can't say it. Someone else will see it and run and say Hucklebuckle Beanstalk, and they'll be the ones to be able to hide it next time. But you always have, you're going to pick an adult. We always use July, crazy person, that in the middle of this game, she'll walk in the room. She will have known where the peanut is hidden, and everyone's searching for it. She'll walk right up to it and say, hey, a peanut. She'll pop it in her mouth and eat it, and the kids are going, oh. What do you do when someone breaks the rules or someone doesn't know the rules? What happens to your game? And so you could discuss that. And it was always fun because July would take that peanut, wouldn't even shell it, pop it in her mouth, and it's like, oh, everybody just it just slayed them. All right, the story we read is when Jesus was lost in the temple. And to consider, did Mary and Joseph have rules or expectations for Jesus? Did Jesus worry his parents? And so a wonderful story to read and get thinking about how families really depend on rules. And not just to know the rules, but we're also going to read the the prodigal son. What happens when rules are broken? And you know what? God comes running to welcome us back, and that's important to know. And then one thing we like to do is a modern day, we retell the story. What happens when, okay, there's no bedtimes, or you know what? Okay, there's no rules about makeup or what you can wear. What would that look like? And so some good creative thoughts and lots of fun lots of opportunities for discussion. The prodigal son, we followed up with some if-then statements. If the younger son had been successful when he left home, ooh, what then? And we're going to finish the lesson with writing a litany. Good things and bad things. God loves me no matter what. That doesn't mean you can go off and and break the rules. Because God loves you, you want to keep the rules. You need to memorize the 10 Commandments. And you know what? There is a way. My daughter taught me. She learned it in youth group or something, how to remember the order of the 10 Commandments by the way you count on your fingers. One finger, okay, one God. Shall have no other gods before me. If you hold up two fingers, the thumb and your index finger, for example, okay, an L, loser, don't survive, don't worship idols. Do not make for yourself any graven images. 3 fingers, forms a W. The word God is holy. Thou shalt not take the name of the Lord your God in vain. So that's online. You can check that out. I'm always counting my fingers. I find it a very effective way to remember it. But also be aware that as you're teaching that there's 2 different ways of numbering the commandments, and be aware of that. And if you have kids coming from different churches, you need to ask them to bring the commandments that their church teaches. And I think on our website we also kind of explain that a little bit, so be aware of that. Oh, when we were out at camp, you know what, we wanted to do a relay. It must have been in the spring, and we actually hid, there's a commandment in each egg, in each jelly bean, and we hid them. And the kids, they're more excited about hiding them. So it was kids and also then the adults. And then we'd hide them for each other. We'd find them, and then we'd go, who can arrange them in order? And they have a lot of fun with that. The recipe card, you know what to do. Write a sentence to summarize what you've learned. And then you need to make the cheese. And the cheese will be on yellow strips of paper. And you're going to sprinkle it all over. The cheese will have the commandments. You can also have them put, their own family rules. In our family, what's another rule? Err on the side of compassion. That better be a family rule. If something's wrong, it's still wrong even if you're not caught doing it. And you know what? I don't care what's fair, what is right, what is kind. So you can do the 10 Commandments. You can also add family rules. And I think this cheese here, it was kind of like fill in the blank. But anyway, you can see how the commandments, the yellow cheese, will connect mom to Angela to dad, and they're protecting us, keeping us together. It's a nice visual reminder. Oh, also at camp, this is just, you can make a lamp with the commandments. The word is a lamp unto my feet and a light unto my path. And it's made simply with one sheet of paper. That was something when we needed additional time. So you can keep that in the back of your mind. Family project. You have some choices. There are additional choices in the counselor's manual. We do hear about them acting out a story or a modern day version of the parable. When we have been to camp and in other bigger programs, we have often done those first 4 lessons in a round robin. So the crust sauce, toppings, cheese, we've done it in a round robin. But we've always had the bake lesson at the correct sequence. We think that the bake lesson, lesson 5, is the important one. Bake is the culmination of previous lessons. It brings them all together. And so this is the lesson that talks about faith tools and the things we need to get through tough times. So even though we might be doing a round robin of the first 4, we want everybody to do bake at the same time after they've completed the first 4. As we explore the theme, you know what? We've made our pizza. Okay? It is done. But who wants to eat a raw pizza, right? So you need to bake it. And heat is important also to families. Families will find themselves in the heat of tough times, but you can come out of the oven strengthened and better than ever. You don't want to come out burnt. You don't want to be raw, but heat can connect us, and that's going to be the emphasis. And you know what? Usually we'll have a raw pizza, we'll have a burnt pizza, we'll have some kind of contest. What do we have to do to make so and so? Take a bite, whatever. But one of the open activities, I think in the counselor manual, it says try to hole punch a cardstock without a hole punch. Me, I like to make a peanut butter sandwich without a knife. Ooh, that's messy. And we're going to talk about having the right tools and how the layers of a pizza actually can be some of the faith tools we have. But when talking about tools, I also like to bring in tools from the kitchen, random things. You know what? And there's some chopsticks there. Those are cooking chopsticks. They're extra long. Some people don't know what a cheese cutter is or a carrot peeler, or they haven't seen a juicer, or the spoon with the serrated edge. It's like to eat a grapefruit with. But people don't eat grapefruit like that anymore, I guess. But I always have a pickle grabber because that's such a fun tool. They love that. So I usually have tools. We gather around. They each get to pick one, try to guess what it is, and we talk about how it makes it easier. Makes the job easier. So when we're in tough times, what are the things that we can use to make things easier? When the little summary box on page 22, I actually have these. I start with the middle column, and I have them printed out on paper, crust, sauce, toppings, cheese. And I hand them out to 4 people. Stand up, get yourself in order. Okay, crust, sauce, toppings, cheese. Then I'll take the paper that I have, the list on the left, talents, foundation, rules, hand them out to 4 more people. Go stand where you belong, talents, you better be standing next to toppings. And then the faith tools, hand out other papers. And these papers are also online, so you can print those out. But then, you know what? I get them up, get them going, we talk about it, then they go sit down and then draw the lines on page 22. They connect those things, but always making sure they know what the layers stand for and how we can use them as tools. When we're in bake, we, of course, have to do Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego because they're thrown in the oven. So there's some true-false questions, nice discussion questions, especially, a chance to talk about positive peer pressure. The 3 boys, young men, they had each other. How is it helpful? How do you choose your friends? So some good questions. And we're going to have on page 23, 24, the story of Paul and Silas. So they're thrown in jail. And so what faith tools did they use? They were singing, they were praying, and after the earthquake, why didn't they escape? And so to think about the easy way out isn't always the right thing to do. And so how do we do that as young people? The easy way out, listen to gossip. Yeah, what's the right thing to do? And even though it's harder. They have to draw kitchen utensils on the bottom of page 24, and they have to name some faith tools. What are they? There's prayer. There's friends. It's 10 Commandments. There's knowing that we have different gifts that we can help each other with, and knowing God loves us no matter what. We name our faith tools. Recipe card. Name the people who've helped you get through tough times. And then this boy wrote that faith tools make things easier for all of us to work together. You're going to make an oven mitt, and the oven mitt will have a Bible verse to help you in tough times. And this is just 2 pieces of paper. I think the template is in the back of the counselor's manual, or it's online. And it's very simple. But you know what? I hear so many kids, it's their favorite, and I know their leaders are bringing in sewing machines, and they're making real oven mitts. I think they're bringing in hot pads, and they're decorating them. Again, the way to enhance that program, I think it's very cool. Family projects, again, sending cards. That last one, sending cards to people who are having a difficult time, and praying for them. All right. We're on our last lesson, people. Lesson 6. You've baked your pizza. Now you got to eat it. You throw a party. So, in God's family, we share as a response to God's love. So, pizza, you eat it, it can nourish you, but pizza is a whole lot more fun when you throw a party. So, families, we want to emphasize, you don't just take care of each other, you are looking to, how do you reach out to others? Okay, so the opening activity suggested in the counselor's manual is to identify needs as physical or spiritual needs. I also like to just bring a bowl of pennies, and I want them to identify their blessings and know how much they have to share. You know, every time I say something that applies to you, take a penny out of the bowl. You know what? Did you get a hug this week? Did you get a hug today? Did you share a meal with your family? You sit down at the dinner table, take a penny. Did someone drive you to soccer practice? You know what? That's a blessing. Do you know someone? Has someone prayed for you? You know what? Just random things. Take a penny out of there, and you know what? Then I ask them to go, and then they're going to put that in the offering, and you realize that they have blessings to share. And meet the boy who shared his lunch. First story we're going to read. And to talk about that, you know what, when you are willing to share, God can take that gift and multiply it, to realize that this was a boy who shared his lunch. And on page 28, there's a picture of a lunch bag. And you know what, write on the ways that you can help other people, and you'll be challenged to help other people. I just heard about putting together a brown bag or a kit that, you know what, when you pass someone on when you're stopped at a stop sign and someone says, you know, homeless, or, you know, can you help me? You know, you have a brown bag ready to go with a bottle of water, granola bars, or and a nice note. You know, it's hard to just drive by someone who's in need, but you don't want to give them cash. But you know what, we're going to put together brown bag kits, and that's one way. And everyone's going to have one in the car, so they're ready. The last story is meeting the apostles, the Great Commission, and I'm going to study that, memorize that, and list ways to spread the gospel and come up with a plan that they can do. On page 29, you see the recipe card, and that's again, a summary. And this boy wrote, there are many ways to share and much to give. When you are finished with the pizza, the last thing you have to do is decorate the pizza box. Come up with slogans, coupons, ingredients, Heavenly Pizza, God's Pizza, the Bremer family. They had the Bremer Hut, and they made a coupon and had a gummy pizza. Very fun. You're also going to have a party. Here's a group in Germany. They had their party at this pizza joint. Make your pizzas. There are many. We've heard that, you know, you've made pizza in the church basement, but also you've gone to a place that allows you to make your individual pizza. And also at the party, I meant to have a picture here. I like to do a Jeopardy game, and with the 6 different categories, you know, cross sauce toppings, and made up some pictures, made up some questions. You can print all that online. And on page 31, don't forget, here's that question you have to answer. And there's also space for the counselor to pen a note. We encourage you to do that. Children can read that. When kids get a God and Family Award, yellow is the color for God and Family. It symbolizes sunlight and joy. And when children wear the recognition, they're reminded of the joy and blessings of family, the blessings of family as they seek to grow in God's love. Now, you know what? I want to try to, the last minute, I want to see if I can just bounce out to our website and show you where some of these resources are. So let's see if this works. Okay. Here's the P.R.A.Y. website. Over here's a quick link. You can see the God and Family. You can click right on that. But here, the P.R.A.Y program. A lot of the stuff here can be on the P.R.A.Y website are interfaith resources to promote duty to God, etc. But if you go to this third button that says P.R.A.Y program, this is the page that will have, there we go. This is the page that specifically, it says up here, the Protestant series, okay? You can, I want to highlight this program startup kit. These are some resources. These are the resources that we had in mind that if you were going to be approaching a pastor and explaining the P.R.A.Y program as Christian education, as evangelism, those are the resources you would need. But let's just go right to this God and Family page. Lots of different things. What I want to highlight is this third one, Program Resources for Counselors, and this lesson by lesson resource. And for example, if you go into toppings, here's where you can print out the different toppings. You can see some comments people have had. Let's see, let's go to cheese. This is where I was talking about, here's some bookmarks with the 10 Commandments in different versions. Here's an explanation of the numbering system. Counting the 10 Commandments on your fingers. Yeah, I love that one. But you can take a look. Here's someone's comments about the whole idea about, in God's family we're loved no matter what. She loves the context of presenting the 10 Commandments. So be sure you come to go to the resources for counselors and then lesson by lesson resources. You know what? I think we're about out of time. Let me go back and see real fast. Let's just see if there are any questions. Okay. Oh, yes. Someone who has a small group, and if there's only one person who expressed interest in this, can this be done at home with parents? Yes. As the name says, God and Family, it's great to be done at home with the family. In fact, there are many successful programs, like at St. Lukas, when they offer God and Family classes. It just means that, okay, parent-child, you need to have lesson 1 done by such and such a time, and then they have that, and then I think they have maybe halfway through the program, and at the very end, your family then makes an appointment with the pastor, and they go in and share their work. So it's really not a class being taught like the way I was presenting it, but in order to do it at home, again, I would encourage the family to get the books and take the books to their pastor before you begin and explain what you want to do, and explain that the pastor can monitor their progress or have them come in at the very end, whatever. Someone wanted to know where this presentation will be located on the website. It's going to be in our Learning Center, and I'll try to, when it gets posted, we're going to post two things. We're going to post the recording, and we'll also post the PowerPoint slides themselves. I think what got sent out ahead of time was just a PDF of six slides to a page. We'll actually put the regular PowerPoint file out there that you can download, and then you can, tailor make a presentation using those slides and modifying them. If it's done in a classroom setting, how long is each session? You know what? Like I said, if it's an hour, I'm banking on that the kids are going to have to make the pizza at home. I like to have an hour 15 or an hour and a half, but I know that's not always possible. I like to do an hour and a half. I'm going to settle for an hour 15, and I know that I'm going to explain how to make a lot of the pizza part at home. One thing I do recommend is, especially if a pastor is helping lead it, get a mom who loves to do the organize supplies and crafts, and get, solicit some support in gathering the, the strips of paper and the toppings and things like that. It'll make it go faster. But I at least an hour, 15 minutes. If my daughter has completed God and Me, when she completes God and Family, does she wear both pins? I believe in Girl Scouts, you can. I'm not sure with Heritage Girls. I think with Boy Scouts of America, I think you wear only the current one. But you would check with your scouting agency, with your council, or, as to what their insignia guide says. Please discuss what length of time between sessions works for families. You know what? Some like to have 6 weeks in a row, or you know, so once a week. Um, and some churches wait till after Christmas and before Lent, and they're offering classes January, February with the goal of recognizing them on Scout Sunday. So usually, I also heard of a church who likes to do it in like um, like on Martin Luther King Day and President's Day, and they do like 3 lessons. It's also a service to the community when parents, when kids don't have school and parents have to work. They do these all-day sessions, and um, so lots of flexibility. I think most often it's weekly. Is there a God and Me webinar coming up? We've finished God and Me and we've posted the recording online. We probably will be announcing some additional ones coming up in January, February, as well as God and Church and God and Life. And okay, you know what? We're running out of time. We will, you know what, we will go ahead and send an email when it's posted. We will send you the links to the recorded session and also to the PowerPoint. And my email, debh@praypub.org, is there. You can always zap me some questions. Thank you for being on the webinar today. We want to support you. We want to help you facilitate a program because we know it's not just helping kids earn an award. It's coming alongside families and walking alongside them in their faith journey, encouraging them to grow in faith together. And so blessings on your ministry, and keep in touch. Thank you.